rock and roll today. I decided that today we are bringing the Read Aloud stream back. We used to do a couple of these where I would read some stuff and we would talk about it. And I stopped it because I was going through job changes at the time and I was also starting to lose my voice from it. So, but I think we're going to start doing like smaller scale shit right now, where like sorry, I'm trying to like get the like thing open to like manage stuff. Yeah, just like smaller scale stuff. So I figured we would start with the book's a little disjointed, but so this is it's kind of a mystery. It's called The Westing Game. Technically, I think I got this a long time ago. Yeah, it's by Ellen Raskin. It's called The Westing Game. I'm trying to figure out when it was written. Hang on. Yeah, 1978. So, this book's a little worse for wear. I got it at a library book sale when I was in middle school. And when it kind of fell apart, I could only find painter's tape. And I don't want to get a new one because, like, a good book is like a friend. You don't replace them just because they break, right? So, we're going to read The Westing Game today. I don't know how far we're going to get, but we're going to read it today. I came to this a little bit late. I think most people, technically kind of read this before middle school, but I was just at, like, a library book sale, and I just picked it up, and I think I had just read Chasing Vernier, and I was like, oh, another, like, mystery thing, the, like, puzzle mystery to murder mystery pipeline coming through. Alright, without further ado, let us begin. Chapter 1, Sunset Towers. The sun sets in the west, just about everyone knows that. But Sunset Towers faces east. Strange. Sunset Towers faced east and had no towers. This glittery, glassy apartment house stood alone on the Lake Michigan's shore, 5 stories high. 5 empty stories high. Then one day, it happened to be the 4th of July, a most uncommon-looking delivery boy rode around town slipping letters under the doors of the chosen tenants-to-be. The letters were signed Barney Northrup. The delivery boy was 62 years old, and there was no such person as Barney Northrup. Dear Lucky One, here it is, the apartment you've always dreamed of, at a rent you can afford, in the newest, most luxurious building on Lake Michigan. Sunset Towers. Picture windows in every room, uniformed doorman, maid service, central air conditioning, high-speed elevator, exclusive neighborhood near excellent schools, etc., etc. You have to see it to believe it, but these unbelievably elegant apartments will be shown by appointment only, so hurry, there are only a few left. Call me now at 276-7474 for this once-in-a-lifetime offer. Your servant, Barney Northrup. P.S. I am also renting ideal space for a doctor's office in the lobby, coffee shop with entrance from parking lot, high-class restaurant on top floor. 6 letters were delivered. Just 6. 6 appointments were made, and one by one, family by family, talk, Barney Northrup led the tours around and about Sunset Towers. Take a look at all that glass. One-way glass, Barney Northrup said. You can see out, nobody can see in. Looking up, the Wexlers, first appointment of the day, were blinded by the blast of morning sun that flashed off the face of the building. See those chandeliers? Crystal, Barney Northrup said, slicking his black mustache and straightening his hand-painted tie in the lobby's mirrored wall. How about this carpeting, 3 inches thick? Gorgeous, Miss Wexler replied, clutching her husband's arm as her high heels wobbled in the deep plush pile. She, too, managed an approving glance in the mirror before the elevator door opened. "You're really in luck," Barney Northrop said. "There's only one apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you." He flung open the door to 3D. "Now, is that a breathtaking or is that breathtaking?" Mrs. Wexler gasped. It was breathtaking, all right. 2 walls of the living room were floor-to-ceiling glass. Following Barney Northrop's lead, she oohed and awed her joyous way through the entire apartment. Her trailing husband was less enthusiastic. "What's this, a bedroom or a closet?" Jake Wessler asked, peering into the last room. "It's a bedroom, of course," his wife replied. "It looks like a closet." "Oh, Jake, this apartment is perfect for us, just perfect." Grace Wexler argued into a whining coo. The 3rd bedroom was a trifle small, but it would be just fine for Turtle. "And think what it means, having your office in the lobby, Jake. No more driving to and from work. No more mowing the lawn or shoveling snow." "Let me remind you," Barney Northrop said, "the rent here is cheaper than what your old house cost in upkeep." How would he know that? Jake wondered. Grace stood before the front window where, beyond the road, beyond the trees, Lake Michigan lay calm and glistening. A lake view. Just wait until those so-called friends of hers with their classy houses see this place. The furniture would have to be reupholstered. No, she'd buy new furniture, beige velvet, and she'd have a stationery made, blue, with a decal edge. Her name and fancy address in swirling type across the top. Grace Wexler, Sunset Towers on Lake Shore. For those of you who are wondering, I'm a little sniffly. It's really hot outside, and I am also very allergic to pollen. Hi, Jimmy. You've been very bad. You did bring books. Oh, I should have brought a ruler out so I could have punished you. Next time I need to bring a ruler to the stream and I'll punish you with the ruler. We are reading the Westing Game today. I decided to start with something small. Not every tenant-to-be was quite as overjoyed as Grace Windsor Wexler. Arriving in the late afternoon, Siddle Pulaski looked up and saw only the dim, warped reflections of the treetops and drifting clouds in the glass face of Sunset Towers. "You're really in luck," Barney Northrop said for the 6th and last time. "There's only one apartment left, but you'll love it. It was meant for you." He flung open the door to a 1-bedroom apartment in the rear. "Now, is that breathtaking or is that breathtaking?" "Not especially," Siddle Pulaski replied, as she blinked into the rays of the summer sun setting behind the parking lot. She had waited all these years for a place of her own, and here it was, in an elegant building where rich people lived. But she wanted a lake view. The front apartments are taken," Barney Northrop said. "Besides, the rent's too steep for a secretary's salary. Believe me, you get the same luxuries here at 1/3 of the price." "At least the view from the side window is pleasant." "Are you sure nobody can see in?" Siddle Pulaski asked. "Absolutely," Barney Northrop said, following her suspicious stare to the mansion on the North Cliff. "That's just the old Westing house up there. It hasn't been lived in for 15 years. "Well, I'll have to think it over." "I have 20 people begging for this apartment," Barney Northrop said, lying through his buck teeth. "Take it or leave it." "I'll take it." Whatever else he was, Barney Northrop was a good salesman. In one day, he had rented all of Sunset Towers to the people whose names were already printed on the mailboxes in an alcove off the lobby. Office, Dr. Wexler. Lobby, Theodorcus Coffee Shop. 2C, F. Bombach. 2D, Theodorcus. 3C, S. Pulaski. 3D, Wexler. 4C, Who. 4D, J.J. Ford. 5, Shinhu's Restaurant. Who were these people, these specially selected tenants? They were mothers and fathers and children, a dressmaker, a secretary, an inventor, a doctor, a judge. And, oh yes, one was a bookie, one was a burglar, one was a bomber, and one was a mistake. Barney Northrop had rented one of the apartments to the wrong person. There's an ad break starting in a minute, so we are going to kind of stop and talk about things until the ad break. And then when the ad stops. So far, we have the fact that there are these very luxury apartments, and somebody with a false name is selling them to only a few people. Now, yeah, I'll get the ruler next time. So far, chapter 1, we have Barney Northrup, who the author tells us is not a real person, is selling 6 apartment buildings to 6 different people, right? And you have to imagine there's a lot, like, there's multiple floors, right? So it is kind of weird that, like, nobody kind of bats an eye, like, that there's all these floors. But they do make a point of mentioning Barney Northrup as a good salesman. He has his, clearly he has a script. Hi, Ted Alexander! So, yeah, and, I kind of forgot this was in Michigan. To be honest, that kind of slipped my mind. But you can you're getting a view for things. So far we've been introduced to Barney Northrup, Grace Wexler, her husband, and then we're also introduced to Siddle Pulaski. We are also informed that one of the people, we still have an ad break, so, like, we've been informed that one of the people is not supposed to be there, that Barney Northrup they got the wrong person, and a lot of these people are not who they seem to be, and it also kind of is implied that these people were gathered here for nefarious reasons. So, I mean, that's just chapter 1. I don't know if all the chapters are this short. We might actually go for quite some time, but I am gonna wait till the end of the ad break to kind of resume all of that. Simply because I don't want people to miss the story, and I do think that, like, it will be good as things kind of progress to, like, I actually don't know what my ad settings are currently right now, because I might have to recheck those, but I don't remember setting it to, like, 10 minutes, so that might, like, but I did take a break during the last, like, 2.5 months, because of stuff that's happening personally, and also I'm pretty sure there's a void gate opening down the street from my house, because there have been, like, 3 fires down the street that we've been put on evacuation notice for, and, like, with, like, 3 fires down the street, right, like, I'm pretty sure, like, there's a void gate opening down the street. Hello, if you're returning from the ad break, I just recapped what happened in chapter 1, didn't miss much, just got through the first chapter. All we've kind of learned, to summarize, is, we have somebody who's a mistake for the apartments, and people who are not what they appear to be. I will reread the last paragraph, to catch everybody up to speed, and then we will continue. I also might have to stop midway through and update my ad schedule if things get a little too invasive. I was previously on a break, and I assumed Twitch would keep my same schedule, but that might not be the case, so we'll see. I will reread the last paragraph of the first chapter, just to get everyone engaged. Who were these people? These specially selected tenants. They were mothers and fathers and children, a dressmaker, a secretary, an inventor, a doctor, a judge. And, oh yes, one was a bookie, one was a burglar, one was a bomber, and one was a mistake. Barney Northrup had rented one of the apartments to the wrong person. Alright, chapter 2, Ghosts or Worst, or Worse. On September 1st, the chosen ones, and the mistake, moved in. A wire fence had been erected along the north side of the building. On it, a sign warned, "No trespassing, property of the Westing estate." The newly paved driveway curved sharply and doubled back on itself, rather than breach the city-county line. Sunset Towers stood at the far edge of town. On September 2nd, Chin Hu's restaurant, specializing in authentic Chinese cuisine, held its grand opening. Only 3 people came. It was, indeed, an exclusive neighborhood. Because remember, as pointed out before, Barney Northrop, despite this being a giant apartment building, has only rented to 6 tenants. And Barney Northrop, as the author has pointed out previously, is not a real person. So, imagine you're in a multi-level apartment building, and you've rented out like a restaurant space, but only 6 people live in the building that you were told by the salesperson was completely booked through. Yeah, you're not getting business. Somebody's setting you up. Too exclusive for Mr. Hu. However, the less expensive coffee shop that opened in the parking lot was kept busy serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner to tenants, ordering up, and to workers from nearby Westingtown. Sunset Towers was a quiet, well-run building, and except for the grumbling Mr. Hu, the people who lived there seemed content. Neighbor greeted neighbor with good morning or good evening, or a friendly smile, and grappled with small problems behind closed doors. The big problems were yet to come. Now it was the end of October. A cold, raw wind whipped dead leaves about the ankles of the 4 people grouped in the Sunset Towers driveway, but not one of them shivered. Not yet. The stocky, broad-shouldered man in the doorman's uniform, standing with his feet spread, fist on his hips, was Sandy McSoutherners. The 2 slim, trim high school seniors, shielding their eyes against the stinging chill, were Theo Theodorcus and Doug Hu. The small, wiry man, pointing to the house on the hill, was Otis Amber, the 62-year-old delivery boy. They faced north, gaping like statues cast in the moment of discovery, until Turtle Wexler, her kite tail of a braid flying behind her, raced her bicycle into the driveway. Look, there's smoke! There's smoke coming from the chimney of the Westinghouse. The others had seen it. What did she think they were looking at anyway? Turtle leaned on the handlebars, panting for breath. Sunset Towers was near excellent schools, as Barney Northrop had promised, but the junior high was 4 miles away. Do you think Old Man Westing's up there? Nah, Otis Amber, the old delivery boy, answered. No one's seen him for years. Supposed to be living on a private island in the South Seas, he is, but most folks say he's dead, long gone dead. They say his corpse is still up there in the big old house. They say his body is sprawled out on a fancy oriental rug, and his flesh is rotting off those mean bones, and maggots are creeping in his eye sockets and crawling out his nose holes. The delivery boy added a high-pitched hee-hee to the gruesome details. Now someone shivered. It was Turtle. Serves him right, Sandy said. At other times a cheery fellow, the doorman often complained bitterly about having been fired from his job of 20 years in the Westing paper mill. But somebody must be up there, someone alive. That is, he pushed back his gold-braided cap and squinted at the house through his steel-framed glasses, as if expecting the curling smoke to write an answer in the autumn air. Maybe it's those kids again. No, it couldn't be. What kids? The 3 kids want to know. Why, those 2 unfortunate fellas from Westingtown. What unfortunate fellas? The 3 heads twisted from the doorman to the delivery boy. Doug, who ducked Turtle's whizzing braid. Touch her precious pigtail even by accident, and she'll kick you in the shins, the brat. He couldn't stand an injury to his legs, not with the big meat coming. The track star began to jog in place. Horrible! It was horrible! Otis Amber, with a shudder that sent the loose straps of his leather aviator's helmet swinging about his long, thin face. Come to think of it, it happened exactly 1 year ago tonight, on Halloween. What happened? Theo Theodorcus asked impatiently. He was late for work in the coffee shop. Tell him, Otis, Sandy urged. The delivery boy stroked the gray stubble on his pointed chin. Seems it all started with a bet. Somebody bet him $1 they couldn't stay in that spooky house for 5 minutes. 1 measly buck. The poor kids hardly got through those French doors on the side of the Westinghouse when they came tearing out like being chased by a ghost. Chased by a ghost, or worse. Hello, Nero! Hi, Jimmy. Well, I mean, I already said hi, but the horrible, horrible comment. I acknowledge the comment. Mm. Or worse, Turtle forgot her throbbing toothache. Theodorus and Doug, who, older and more worldly wise, exchanged winks, but stayed to hear the rest of the story. One fella ran out crazy-like, screaming his head off. He never stopped screaming till he hit rocks at the bottom of the cliff. The other fella hasn't said but 2 words since. Something about purple. Sandy helped him out. Purple waves. Otis Amber nodded sadly. Yep, that poor fella just sits in the state asylum saying, purple waves, over and over again, and scared eyes keep staring at his hands. You see, when he came running out of the Westinghouse, his hands were dripping with warm red blood. Now all 3 shivered. Poor kid, the doorman said. All that pain and suffering for $1 bet. Make it $2 for each minute I stay in there and you're on, Turtle said. Someone was spying on the group in the driveway. From the front window of the apartment 2D, 15-year-old Chris Theodorus watched his brother, Theo, shake his hands, it must be a bet, with the skinny, one-pigtailed girl, and rush into the lobby. The family coffee shop would be busy now. His brother should have been working at the counter half an hour ago. Chris checked the wall clock. 2 more hours before Theo would bring up his dinner. Then he would tell him about the limper. Earlier that afternoon, Chris had followed the flight of a purple martin. This is Latin. I apologize. I'm bad at reading Latin. Prone subis. Across the field of brambles. Through the oaks, up to the red maple on the hill. The bird flew off, but something else caught his eye. Someone, he could not tell if this person was a man or a woman, came out of the shadows on the lawn, unlocked the French doors, and disappeared into the Westinghouse. Someone with a limp. Minutes later, smoke began to rise from the chimney. Once again, Chris turned toward the side window and scanned the house on the cliff. The French doors were closed. Heavy drapes hung full against the 17 windows he had counted so many times. They didn't need drapes on the special glass windows here in Sunset Towers. He could see out, but nobody could see in. Then why did he sometimes feel that someone was watching him? Who could be watching him? God? If God was watching, then why was he like this? The binoculars fell to the boy's lap. His head jerked, his body coiled, lashed by violent spasms. Relax. Theo will come soon. Relax. Soon the geese will be flying in the V. Canada goose. Bronta candaris. Relax. Relax. Watch the wind tangle the smoke below it and blow it towards Westingtown. All right. Well, I will happily read to you while you rest, Nero. All right. So to sum up what has happened, Sunset Apartments, which, you know, has a look over the lake, also looks out on the Westinghouse, which is a very old, dilapidated mansion that, as Barney Northrop said, nobody has lived in for literal years. So, they're all watching a bunch of smoke. And Otis, who is a 65-year-old doorman, and who's a 65-year-old delivery boy, and Sandy, who is the doorman, who has beef with Westing, apparently, have decided to spin a little story for the children to try to, like, you know, psych them out, because it's October, as the book states. Alright, Chapter 3. Tenants in and out. Upstairs in 3D, Angela Wexler stood on a hassock as still as and blank-faced pretty as a store window dummy. Her pale blue eyes stared unblinkingly at the lake. "Turn, dear," said Flora Bombatch, the dressmaker, who lived and worked in the smaller apartment on the 2nd floor. Angela pivoted in a slow quarter turn. "Oh!" Startled by the small cry, Flora Bombatch dropped the pin from her pudgy fingers and almost swallowed the 3 in her mouth. "Please be careful, Miss Bombatch. My Angela has very delicate skin." Grace Winslow Wexler was supervising the fitting of her daughter's wedding dress from the beige velvet couch. Of course Grace Wexler would make all her furniture beige. I'm sorry. This is a side tangent. Have you all seen the TikTok things where they take these really unique and cool houses and then paint everything beige and bring in the worst beige furniture you can imagine? It's awful. Like, there was one where they had this, like, really cool, like, fantasy-esque, like, winding, like, towered staircase, and they took it out, painted everything beige, and just redid it all, and infuriating. The fantasy lover in me just died inside. It was bad. I don't know what it is about beige, worst color, no. Okay. Great, if this was written in the 70s, but if this was written nowadays, Grace Rexler would definitely be the type of, like, you know, like, blog mom, essentially. Above her hung the 24 framed flower prints she had selected and arranged with the greatest of taste and care. She could have been an interior decorator, a good one, too, if it wasn't for the pressing demands of so on and so forth. Miss Bombach didn't prick me, Mother, Angela said evenly. I was just surprised to see smoke coming from the Westinghouse chimney. Crawling with slow caution on her hands and knees, Flora Bombach paused and searched for the dropped pin to peer up through her straight gray bangs. Mrs. Wexler set her coffee cup on the driftwood coffee table and craned her neck for a better view. We must have new neighbors. I'll have to drive up there with housewarming gift. They may need some decorating advice. Hey, look! There's smoke coming from the Westinghouse. Again, Turtle was late with the news. Oh, it's you. Mrs. Wexler always seemed surprised to see her other daughter, so unlike golden-hair, angel-faced Angela. Flora Bombach, about to rise with the found pin, quickly sank down again to protect her sore shin from the shag carpeting. She had pulled Turtle's braid in the lobby yesterday. Otis Amber says that Old Man Westing's sinking corpse is rotting on an oriental rug. Oh, my, Flora Bombach exclaimed, and Miss Wexler clipped her tongue in an irritated tisk. Turtle decided not to go on with the horror story. Not that her mother cared if she got killed or ended up a raving lunatic. Miss Bombach, could you hem my witch's costume? I need it for tonight. Miss Wexler answered. Can't you see she's busy with Angela's wedding dress? And why must you wear a silly costume like that? Really, Turtle. I don't know why you insist on making yourself ugly. It's no sillier than a wedding dress, Turtle snapped back. Besides, nobody gets married anymore, and if they do, they don't wear silly wedding dresses. She was close to a tantrum. Besides, who would want to marry that stuck-up, know-it-all, marshmallow-faced Dr. Denton? That's enough out of your smart mouth! Miss Wexler leaped up, hand ready to strike. Instead, she straightened the framed flower print, patted her fashionable honey-blonde hairdo, and sat down again. She had never hit Turtle, but one of these days. Besides, a stranger was present. Dr. Dear is a brilliant young man, she explained for Flora Bombach's ears. The dressmaker smiled politely. Angela will soon be Angela Dear. Isn't that a precious name? The dressmaker nodded. And then we'll have 2 doctors in the family. Now where do you think you're going? Turtle was at the front door. Downstairs to tell Daddy about the smoke coming from the Westinghouse. Come back this instant. You know your father operates in the afternoon. Why don't you go to your room and work on stock market reports or whatever you do in there? Some room. It's even too small for a closet. I'll hem your witch's costume, Turtle, Angela offered. Mrs. Wexler beamed on her perfect child draped in white. What an angel. Mrs. Wexler is a horrible character. I'm sorry. She's a good character for what she is. I'm just saying that, like, she is Karen, a Karen before Karens were a thing, right? This was written in the 70s or 80s or whatever. Like, they're talking about, like, shag carpeting, which is 70s. I think, as I said before, again, bad with numbers. This book was written, 1978. So, like, late 70s, you know. But, yeah, very, like, but, like, her, like, thinking she's going to hit her daughter and calling her daughter Turtle, and you can kind of see, like, I feel so bad for the dressmaker in the situation, Flora, because, like, anybody who's worked a customer service job knows that, like, you can't say anything in that situation. Like, you kind of just have to, like, be like, okay, I'm just here, I don't know why I'm here, I'm just existing. Like, so I feel really bad for Flora. Angela also seems kind of, like, reserved, and I feel especially bad for Turtle, because Turtle seems to be getting a lot of the hate in the situation. Alright. Crow's clothes were black. her skin dead white. She looked severe, rigid in fact, rigid and righteously severe. No one could have guessed that under that stern facade, her stomach was doing flip-flops as Dr. Wexler cut out a corn. Staring down at the fine lines of pink scalp that showed through the podiatrist's thinning light brown hair did nothing to ease her queasiness. So, softly humming a hymn, she settled her gaze on the north window. Smoke! Watch it! Jake Wexler almost cut off her little toe along with the corn. Unaware of the near amputation, the cleaning woman stared at Westinghouse. If you just sit back, Jake began, but his patient did not hear him. She must have been a handsome woman at one time, but life had used her harshly. Her faded hair, knotted in a tight bun on the nape of her gaunt neck, glinted gold red in the light. Her profile was fine, marred only by the jut of her clenched jaw. Well, let's get on with it. Friday was his busy day. He had phone calls to make. Please sit back, Miss Crow. I am almost finished. What? Jake gently replaced her foot on the chair's pedestal. I see you've hurt your shin? What? For an instant their eyes met. Then she looked away, a shy creature or a guilty one. Crow averted her face when she spoke. Your daughter Turtle kicked me, she muttered, staring once again at the Westinghouse. That's what happens when there's no religion in the home. Sandy says Westing's corpse is up there, rotting away on an oriental rug, but I don't believe it. If he's truly dead, then he's roasting in hell. We are sinners all. What do you mean his corpse is rotting on an oriental rug? Some kind of Persian rug, maybe a Chinese rug. Mr. Hu joined his son at the glass sidewall of the 5th floor restaurant. And why were you wasting precious time listening to an average delivery boy with an overactive imagination when you should have been studying? It was not a question. Doug, whose father never asked questions. Don't shrug at me, go study. Sure, Dad. Doug jogged off through the kitchen. It was no use arguing that there was no school tomorrow, just track practice. He jogged down the back stairs. No matter what excuse he gave, go study, his father would say, go study. He jogged into the Who's rear apartment, stretched out on the bare floor, and repeated, go study, to 20 sit-ups. Only 2 customers were expected for dinner hour. Shin Hu's restaurant could seat 100. Mr. Hu slammed the reservation book shut, pressed a hand against the pain of his ample stomach, unwrapped a chocolate bar, and devoured it quickly before acid etched another ulcer. Back home again, is he? Well, Westing won't get off so easy this time, not on his life. A small, delicate woman in a long white apron stood in silence before the restaurant's east window. She stared longingly into the boundless gray distance as if far, far on the other side of Lake Michigan lay China. Sandy McSoutherners saluted as the maroon Mercedes swung around the curved driveway and came to a stop at the entrance. He opened the car door with a ceremony reserved only for Judge J.J. Ford. Look up there, Judge, there's smoke coming from the Weston house. A tall black woman in a tailored suit, her short clipped hair touched with gray, slipped out from behind the wheel, handed the car keys to the doorman, and cast a disinterested glance at the house on the hill. They say nobody's up there, just the corpse of the old man Weston rotting on an oriental rug, Sandy reported, as he hoisted a full briefcase from the trunk of the car. Do you believe in ghosts, Judge? What? What do you mean, slutted? What did I do? What did I end up doing? There's certain to be a more rational explanation. You're right, of course. Sandy opened the heavy glass door and followed on the judge's heels through the lobby. I was repeating what Otis Amber said. Otis Amber is a stupid man, if not downright mad. J.J. Ford hurried into the elevator. She should not have said that. Not her. Not the first black, the first woman, to have been elected to a judgeship in the state. She was tired after a trying day. That was it. Or was it? So Sam Westing has come home at last. Well, she could sell the car, take out a bank loan, pay him back in cash. But would he take it? Please don't repeat what I said about Otis Amber, Mr. Southerners. Don't worry, Judge. The doorman escorted her to the apartment 4D. What you tell me is strictly confidential. And it was. J.J. Ford was the biggest tipper in Sunset Towers. Who said slut it out? Did I misread something? Or did somebody else say something? Which guy? Oh, were you, did I misread saluted? I might have misread saluted. When I, like, get the rhythm going, it's hard for me to, like, stop sometimes. It's like, a simple imaging trick. But, yeah, roll with it. I saw someone, but Chris Theodorus was too excited to stutter out the news to his brother. One arm shot out and twisted up over his head. Dumb arm. Theo squatted next to the wheelchair. Listen, Chris, I'll tell you about that haunted castle on the hill. His voice was soothing and hushed in mystery. Somebody is up there, Chris. But nobody is there, just rich Mr. Westing. And he's dead. Dead as a squashed June bug and rotting away on the moth-eaten oriental rug. Chris relaxed as he always did when his brother told him a story. Theo was good at making up stories. And the worms are crawling in and out of the dead man's skull. And in and out of his ear holes, his nose holes, his mouth holes. And out of all his holes. Chris laughed, then quickly composed his face. He was supposed to look scared. Theo leaned closer, and high above the putrid corpse, a crystal chandelier is tinkling. It tinkles and tinkles, but not one breath of air stirs in that gloomy tomb of a room. Gloomy tomb of a room. Theo will make a good writer someday, Chris thought. He wouldn't spoil this wonderful, spooky Halloween story by telling him about the real person up there, the one with the limp. So Chris sat quietly, his body at ease, and heard about ghosts and ghouls and purple waves, and smiled at his brother with pure delight. A smile that could break your heart, Siddle Pulaski, the tenant in 3C, always said, but no one paid any attention to Siddle Pulaski. Jimmy, I thought you were saying, like, slut it out, because I am not wearing a bra right now, and since I was, like, to the side, I thought that, like, this area had completely gone. I was really concerned for a sec. Not that that would be, like, the craziest thing on Twitch right now, but it's not intentional. Like, I do put things on YouTube at a later date, so I'm like, ah. Part of me had a moment where I was, like, terrified that, like, all of this came loose. Siddle Pulaski struggled out of the taxi. Large end first, she was not a heavy woman, just wide-hipped from years of secretarial sitting. If only there was a ladylike way to get out of a cab. Her green rhinestone-studded glasses slipped down her fleshy nose as she grappled with a tall triangular package and a stuffed shopping bag. If only that lazy driver would lend her a hand. Not for a nickel tip, he wouldn't. The cabbie slammed the back door and sped around the curved driveway, narrowly missing the Mercedes that Sandy was driving to the parking lot. At least the never there when you need him doorman had propped open the front door. Not that he ever helped her, or noticed her for that matter. No one ever noticed. Siddle Pulaski limped through the lobby. She could be carrying a high-powered rifle in that package and no one would notice. She had moved to Sunset Towers hoping to meet elegant people, but no one had invited her in for so much as a cup of tea. No one paid any attention to her, except that poor crippled boy whose smile could break your heart, and that bratty kid with the braid. She'll be sorry she kicked her in the shin. Juggling her load, earrings jingling, and charm bracelet jangling, Siddle Pulaski unlocked the 7 locks to apartment 3C and bolted the door behind her. There'd be fewer burglaries around here if people listened to her about putting in deadbolt locks. But nobody listened. Nobody cared. On the plastic-covered dining table, she set out the contents of the shopping bag. 6 cans of enamel, paint thinner, and brushes. She unwrapped the long package and leaned 4 wooden crutches against the wall. The sun was setting over the parking lot, but Siddle Pulaski did not look out her back window. From the side window, smoke could be seen rising from the Westinghouse, but Siddle Pulaski did not notice. No one ever notices Siddle Pulaski, she muttered, but now they will. Now they will. All right. We're introduced to more denizens of the Westinghouse, and the plot thickens. We're kind of learning a little bit more about everyone here and what the kind of place they fitted into over the last 2 months of living in the area, right? And we're also the story of the story, that Otis made up about the Westinghouse is kind of going through. Which is fun, but most people are not taking it seriously, right? Alright. Chapter 4. The Corpse Found. The Halloween moon was full. Except for her receding chin, Turtle Wexler looked every inch the witch, her dark, unbraided hair streaming wild in the wind from under her peaked hat, a putty wart pasted on her small-beaked nose. If only she could fly to the Westinghouse on a broomstick instead of scrambling over rocks on all fours. What with all that she had to carry. Under the long black cape, the pockets of her jeans bulged with necessities for a night's dangerous vigil. Can you guys just share the toy? I don't know why you guys are French kissing the toy, okay, puppies? Bear, she's literally lying on your hand. You could just move. I don't think she's gonna share that one with you. My dogs are down here, lying down, and Luna has we got these deer antlers. They chew them and they get calcium from them. But they're kind of both have the deer antler in their mouth together at the same time. They do this a lot. This is not. But Luna tends to make the deer antler is kind of a source of if it was another toy, I wouldn't be as worried. But the deer antler, they're a little more possessive of. So I'm watching it. But Bear has another toy now, so I know you want the antler, but you'll console yourself with that one, huh? Josie's here too, but I think she's sleeping upstairs. I have to give her eye drops later today, though. But yeah, I'm dog sitting for my grandparents right now. And yeah, she's a Chug Dachshund mix. So a Chug is a Chihuahua pug, and then Dachshund. But pugs actually, they are so inbred, and we have done horrible shit to pugs and bulldogs. But pugs have a thing where their eyes have a lot of times they need to be on eye drops because there's a genetic thing where their eyes just fall out of their heads because we as a human species have completely destroyed whatever pugs were and made them an amalgamation of just constant pain. But because she does have some pug lineage, she has some issues with her eyes, so she needs constant eye drops. Otherwise, she's fine. Fortunately, she's not a big dog, so my grandparents are going away to Europe, I think. So, yeah, I'm taking care of her while they're away, and she's usually pretty good. She gets along a little better with Luna than Bear, but Bear's just really big, and she's tiny, so they get along fine. She just, she gets a little irritated with his dumbassery sometimes. Hi, Devil's Cry! We're reading the Weston game today. We're only on chapter 4, so you're not far, you're not missing much. Okay. And Turtle is now doing her bet at the Westinghouse, where she was like, hey, if you pay me $2, I'll stay there for hours and hours. So she's getting $2 an hour. Alright. Under the long, and it's October, so Turtle is, dressed up as a witch. She's a kid. Whatever. I'm good. It's been a crazy couple of months, but so far so good. I'm happy to go back to doing reading streams. I took a break from doing reading streams, and I'm happy to go back. I think we'll kind of stick to, shorter books. I feel like I kind of bit off a bit more than I could chew last time, but I feel like we'll stick to some of the shorter books that are a little easier to, breeze through. Alright. Doug, who had already reached the top of the cliff and taken his station behind the maple on the lawn, The track star was chosen timekeeper because he could run faster than anyone in the state of Wisconsin. Here she comes. It's about time. Shivering knee-deep in damp leaves that couldn't do his leg muscles much good, he readied his thumb on the button of the stopwatch. Turtle squinted into the blackness that lay within the open French doors, open as though someone or something was expecting her. There's no such thing as a ghost. Besides, all you had to do was speak friendly-like to them. Ghosts, like dogs, know when a person's scared. Ghost or worst, Otis Amber had said. Well, not the worst. Not even the worst could hurt Turtle Wexler. She was pure of heart and deed. She only kicked shins in self-defense, so that couldn't count against her. She wasn't scared. She was not scared. Hurry up! That was Doug from behind the tree. At $2 a minute, 25 minutes would pay for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. She could stay all night. She was prepared. Turtle checked her pockets. 2 sandwiches, Sandy's flask filled with orange pop, a flashlight, her mother's silver cross to ward off vampires, the putty wart on her nose, soaked in Angela's perfume in the event she was locked up with the stinking corpse, was clogging her nostrils with sticky sweetness. Turtle took a deep breath of chill night air and flinched with pain. She was afraid of the dentist, not ghosts, or don't think about purple waves. Think about $2 a minute. Now 1, 2, 3.5, go! Doug checked his stopwatch. 9 minutes. 10 minutes. 11 minutes. Suddenly a terrified scream, a young girl's scream, pierced the night. Should he go in? Or was this one of the brat's tricks? Another scream, closer. Alright, I might have to either close the door or see what the dogs are barking at. It is really hot, so our neighbors might be barbecuing. A couple nights ago, I was up all night because our neighbors, across the street were, having a party that lasted till, fucking 3 a.m. And I was like, no, I don't want to, So, we'll see. But, the dogs, people had, parked all over it was bad. I was not happy about it. Clutching the bunched cape around her waist, Turtle came hurtling out of the Westinghouse, screaming. Turtle had seen the corpse in the Westinghouse, but it was not rotting, and it was not sprawled on an oriental rug. The dead man was tucked in a 4-poster bed. A throbbing whisper, purple, purple, or was it turtle, turtle? Whatever it was scary, had beckoned her to the master bedroom on the 2nd floor, and maybe it was a dream. No, it couldn't be. She ached all over from the tumble down the stairs. The moon was down, the window dark. Turtle lay in the narrow bed in her narrow room, waiting. Dark, still dark. Waiting. At last, slow morning crept up the cliff and raised the Westinghouse. The house of whispers, the house of death. $2 times 12 minutes equals $24. Thud. The morning newspaper was flung against the front door. Turtle tiptoed through the sleeping apartment to retrieve it and climbed back into the bed. The dead man staring at her from the front page. The face was younger, the short beard darker, but it was he, all right. Sam Westing found dead. Found? No one else knew about the bedded down corpse except Doug, and he had not believed her. Then who found the body? The Whisperer? Samuel W. Westing, the mysterious industrialist who disappeared 13 years ago, was found dead in his Westingtown mansion last night. He was 65 years old. The only child of immigrant parents, orphaned at the age of 12, self-educated, hard-working, Samuel Westing saved his laborer's wages and bought a small paper mill. From these meager beginnings, he built the giant Westing Paper Products Corporation and founded the city of Westingtown to house his thousands of workers and their families. His estate is estimated to be worth over $200 million. Turtle read that again. $200 million. Wow. When asked the secret of his success, the industrialist always replied, clean living, hard work, and fair play. Westing set his own example. He neither drank nor smoked and never gambled. Yet he was dedicated gamesman and a master at chess. Puppies! Is the small dog down the street starting a turf war again? Alright, I'm gonna have to close the door. You guys are gonna get mad that you can't come in. You guys are just gonna have to live without not being able to be in my room. That is how that goes. Alright, back to it. Turtle had been in the game room. That's where she picked up the billiard cue she had carried up the stairs as a weapon. The great patriot, Samuel Westing, was famous for his fun-filled 4th of July celebrations. Whether disguised as Ben Franklin or Lily Drummer Boy, he always acted a role in the elaborately staged pageants, which he wrote and directed. Perhaps best remembered was his surprise portrayal of Betsy Ross. Games and feasting followed the pageant, and at the sunset, Mr. Westing put on his Uncle Sam costume and set off fireworks from his front lawn. The spectacular pyrotechnic display could be viewed 30 miles away. Fireworks! So that's what was in those boxes stamped danger explosives stacked in the ground floor storeroom. What a pyrotechnic display they would make if they all went off at the same time. The Paper King's later years were marred by tragedy. His only daughter, Violet, drowned on the eve of her wedding, and 2 years later his troubled wife deserted their home. Although Mr. Westing obtained a divorce, he never remarried. 5 years later, he was sued by an inventor over the rights to the disposable paper diaper. On his way to court, Samuel Westing and his friend, Dr. Sidney Sykes, were involved in a near-fatal automobile accident. Both men were hospitalized with severe injuries. Sykes resumed his Westingtown medical practice and the post of county coroner, but Westing disappeared from sight. It was rumored, but never confirmed, that he controlled the vast Westing Paper Products Corporation from a private island in the South Seas. He is still listed as chairman of the board. We are surprised as you are, and deeply saddened, a spokesman for Julian R. Eastman, president and chief executive officer of the corporation, stated when informed that Westing's body was found in the lakeside home. Dr. Sykes' response was, "A tragic end to a tragic life. Sam Westing was a truly great and important man." The funeral will be private. The executor of the Westing estate said the deceased requested that, in place of flowers, donations be sent to Blind Bowlers of America. I really hope Blind Bowlers of America is a legit thing. That would make my day. One, I just think it'd be really cool as somebody with as somebody who has a disability and does sport. I think it'd be cool if there are more organizations that I think it would be cool if there are more organizations that cater because I have fatigue issues and I do a sport that requires a lot of stamina and I still somehow make it work. So there's levels of things, but I think it'd be cool if that was a thing. I just kind of hope I think it'd be cool if it was a real thing, because if it's mentioned in a book. I like it when things that are mentioned in fictional books actually have real tie-ins to the real world. Turtle turned the page of the newspaper, but that was all. That was all? There was no mention of how the body was found. There was no mention of the envelope propped on the bedside table, on which a shaky hand had scrawled, "If I am found dead in bed." She had been edging her way against the four-poster, reading the words in the beam of the flashlight, when she had felt the hand, the waxy dead hand that lay on the red, white, and blue quilt. Though through her scream she had seen the white, bearded face, she remembered running, tripping over the billiard cue, falling down the stairs, denting Sandy's flask, and dropping everything else. There was no mention of 2 suspicious peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the premises, or a flashlight, or a silver cross on a chain. There was no mention of prowlers, no mention of anyone having seen a witch, no mention of footprints on the lawn, track shoes, and sneakers size 6. Oh well, she had nothing to fear other than losing her mother's cross. Old Mr. Westing probably died of a heart attack or pneumonia. It was drafty in there. Turtle hid the folded newspaper in her desk drawer, counted her black and blue marks in the mirror, 7, dressed, and set out to find the 4 people who knew she had been in the Westing house last night. Doug Who, Theo Theodorcus, Otis Amber, and Sandy. They owed her $24. I like Turtle. Just being yeah, I was scared out of my mind, but give me my goddamn money. That's kind of how I was as a kid. I was you hold a grudge. You know the deal. If you do, I think, this is when we lived in, my dad, went to seminary school because he was, an anthropology major, and he was studying Hebrew, But we lived in seminary housing, which was like very old, dilapidated housing where like literally the house was falling apart. There was like a black widow infestation. Like the doors didn't work. It would like sway in the wind. Because it was associated with the church, it didn't like have to be up to building code. My dad and I got in a fight because I was really young then. I was maybe like 5, 6. And my dad and I would get in these very petty fights a lot of the time. But, we got in a fight. So because I wasn't diagnosed being on the spectrum yet, and sensory processing disorder wasn't really a thing that was talked about back then, and even if it had been, like, my parents were not sober or sane, so... But, my dad had made squash, and I don't really like squash. I don't like the texture of squash. And I also kind of have a lot of issue with, like, orange foods a lot of the time. Like, I didn't want to eat the squash. And so my dad and I got in a fight, and he said, like, oh, you're just gonna have to stay here and sleep. Totally thinking that I would back down, or I would chicken out. And I was like, no, I'll do it. And he locked me in the kitchen, in the dark, in the cold, the entire night. And he didn't, like, lock, but he was like, oh, if you decide to eat the squash, you can leave. And I stayed there the entire night, refusing to eat the squash. I was fucking not gonna do it. And he came in the morning and he was genuinely surprised. And he never called me out again. And we had a lot of, like, petty fights like that. Like, there was a time where, like, I said I could sleep on a chair, and he said there's no way you could sleep on that chair, so I did it, and eventually he gave up, and he came, and he just picked me up and took me to bed. He was like, I'm not doing this. Or, like, there was a time where, like, I bet him I could talk for an hour, and he said I couldn't, and then I did it. Like, we kind of had that, like, where, like, but, like, every time I would surpass his expectation, he would never kind of make that request of me again, or never put me in a situation like that again. So it was like, oh, if I can endure this thing, because I don't want to do something, it's not going to be asked of me again. So, like, I'll go through the hardship, but I won't have to ever be in that situation again. Try me, Jimmy, I can. I've had dates that have lasted 6 hours where I've talked the entire time. At noon, the 62-year-old delivery boy began his rounds. He had 16 letters to deliver from E.J. Plum, attorney at law. Otis Amber knew what the letter said because one was addressed to him. As named beneficiary in the estate of Samuel W. Westing, your attendance is required in the South Library of the Westing House tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the reading of the will. Means old man Westing has left us some money, he explained. Just sign the receipt here. What do you mean? What does position mean? It means position, like a job. Most receipts have that to make sure the right person gets the right letter. Grace Windsor Wexler wrote housewife, crossed it out, wrote decorator, crossed it out, wrote heiress. And then she wanted to know, who else, how many, how much? I ain't allowed to say nothing. The other heirs were too stunned by the unexpected legacy to bother him with questions. Madame Who marked an X, and her husband filled in her name and position. Theo wanted to sign the receipt for his brother, but Chris insisted on doing it himself. Slowly, taking great pains, he wrote, Christos Theodorcus, birdwatcher. By the time the sun had set behind the Sunset Towers parking lot, Otis Amber, deliverer, had completed his rounds. All right, the plot thickens. Westing is found dead, and we've been suspecting that these people have been called for an ulterior motive, but now that they're all listed as receiving some form of money from the Westing House, it's kind of implied that maybe this is why they were chosen. All right, Chapter 5, 16 Heirs. The marbled sky lay heavy on the Great Lakes when Grace Windsor Wexler parked her car in the Westing driveway and strode up the walk ahead of her daughters. Her husband had refused to come. But no matter. Recalling family gossip about a rich uncle, maybe it was a great uncle anyway, his name was Sam, Grace had convinced herself that she was the rightful heir. Jake was Jewish, so he could not possibly be related to Samuel W. Westing. Oh, stand down. As somebody whose relatives are Ashkenazi Jewish and does not look Jewish or have a Jewish last name, Grace doesn't know what she's talking about, okay? There's a lot of different types of, like, yeah, look, it's very vast that you don't think so. I can't imagine what became of my silver cross, she said, fingering the gold-linked necklace under her mink stole, as she paused to appraise the big house. You know, Angela, we could have the wedding right here. Turtle, where are you wandering off to now? The letter said, never mind. Turtle preferred not to explain how she knew the library could be entered from the French doors on the lawn. The front door was opened by Crow. Although the Sunset Tower's cleaning woman always wore black, here it reminded Grace Wexler to dab her eyes with a lace handkerchief. This was a house of mourning. The silent Crow helped Angela with her coat and nodded approval of her blue velvet dress with white collar and cuffs. I'll keep my furs with me, Grace said. She did not want to be taken from one of the poor relatives. Seems rather chilly in here. Turtle, too, complained of the chill, but her mother tugged off her coat to reveal a fluffy, ruffly, pink party dress 2 sizes too large and 4 inches too long. It was one of Angela's hand-me-downs. Please sit anywhere, the lawyer said, without glancing from the envelopes he was sorting at the head of the long library table. Mrs. Wexler took the chair to his right and motioned to her favorite. Angela sat down next to her mother, removed a trousseau towel from her large tapestry shoulder bag, and took up embroidering the monogram D. Slumped in the third chair, Turtle pretended she had never seen this paneled library with its bare and dusty shelves. Suddenly she sat up with a start. An open coffin, draped in bunting, rested on a raised platform at the far corner of the room. In it lay the dead man, looking exactly as she had found him, except now he was dressed in the costume of Uncle Sam, including the tall hat. Between the waxy hands, folded across his chest, lay her mother's silver cross. I'm sorry, let's just try to put ourselves in Turtle's shoes for a second, okay? You are like 13, 12, right? You make a bet with your older friends that you kind of are infatuated with that you can last in a supposedly haunted house, and you get paid to do it for how long? You go to a supposed haunted house, find a dying guy, freak the fuck out, leave everything behind. Next day, dying guy is dead. You go there and find an artifact you left behind in the dead guy's hands that you need to get back before your mom finds out and you are fucked. Just imagine what you would do in that situation. The absurdity of the situation. Put yourself in Turtle shoes for a second of just being like, what the frick is happening right now? It's just like a whole other level of like awkward uncomfortability at being just like, oh fuck, I am screwed. Grace Wexler was too busy greeting the next heir to notice. Why, Dr. D, I had no idea you'd be here, but of course you'll soon be a member of the family. Come, sit next to your bride-to-be. Turtle, you'll have to move down. D. Denton Deer, always in a hurry, brushed a quick kiss on Angela's cheek. He was still wearing his hospital whites. I didn't know this was a pajama party, Turtle said, relinquishing her chair and stomping to the far end of the table. The next heir, short and round, entered timidly, her lips pressed together in an impish smile that curved up to what must be the pointed ears under her straight-cut steely hair. You wonder if he owes Turtle money also? I mean, he's dead and they've been named as heirs. So maybe. Hello, Miss Bombach, Angela said. I don't think you've met my fiancé, Denton Deer. You're a lucky man, Mr. Dear. Dr. Dear, Mrs. Wexler corrected her, puzzled by the dressmaker's presence. Yes, of course, I'm so sorry. Sensing that she was unwelcome at this end of the room, Flora Bombach walked on. Hi, don't mind if I sit next to you. I promise not to pull on your braid. That's okay. Turtle was hunched over the table, her small chin resting between her crossed arms. From there, she could see everything except the coffin. Grace Wexler dismissed the next heir with an audible tongue click. That distasteful little man didn't even have the sense to remove his silly aviator's cap. Oh dear, doctor. Yeah. Also, I would like to point out, this is something that I really liked reading as a kid, and I'll tell you why. So, Flora is the only person who has asked Turtle, has been mindful of Turtle's space. Turtle's own mother made her give up her space, her spot, for somebody else, right? So Flora is the only person who has been mindful of Turtle's space and respectful of her wishes. She is like, hi, can I sit next to you? Can I kind of inhabit your space? And I promise not to pull on your hair. Like Turtle has a reputation for kicking people because they keep pulling on her hair. Imagine how annoying that is. She doesn't ask for hair to be pulled. People just walk up to her, see a little girl, and start pulling on her hair. I think Turtle's totally justified in kicking their shins. And our own parents don't do anything about this. And the only person who's being nice to her is someone she doesn't know. And the reason I resonate with this so much is when I met my current therapist, I was going into high school, coming out of middle school. And I met my current therapist in a program called the Wraparound Program. It's no longer a thing, but it was like a mentorship program, kind of like Big Brother, Big Sister, but the school district had initiated for therapists to work with at-risk kids and make sure they kind of got what they needed. So it wasn't really strict therapy, it was more mentorship therapy. And the reason I actually liked this therapist was because she asked if she could sit next to me, and nobody in my life before then had ever been mindful of my comfort level in my house, or my comfort level in a situation. So that was the only and it's the only reason I still continue to work with her. She's the only therapist I've had who's had this level of intellect to be oh, can I be mindful? I'm trying to be mindful of your space. So it's such a thing that we don't think about, but it is really important. Instead of just automatically sitting next to someone, to ask, and I feel a lot of people don't think about how we inhabit space, how we go about that, and the intricacies in that type of thing, and especially for someone like me who's on the autism spectrum and doesn't do very well in a lot of social dynamics. I'm not very good at picking up on signals. No, I've never had a therapist pull my hair. My hair has never been a source of intrigue for people. Touching intrigue for people. My sister has curly hair. She has essentially how Hermione Granger's hair is described in his books. That's her hair. And when she was doing ballet professionally, she grew it out really long. So people would try to touch her hair. Now that it's cut short, not as much. But nobody used to try to touch my hair. I've had a lot of people be infatuated with my freckles, but not my hair. Grace Wexler dismissed the next heir with an audible tongue click. That distasteful little man didn't even have the sense to remove his silly aviator's cap. Tisk. And what in heaven's name was he doing here? The delivery boy shouted, "Let's give a cheer! Otis Amber is here!" Turtle laughed, Flora Bombach tittered, and Grace Wexler again clicked her tongue. Doug, who and his father entered silently, but Sandy gave a hearty hi and a cheery wave. He wore his doorman's uniform, but unlike Otis Amber, carried his hat in his hand. Grace Windsor Wexler was no longer surprised at the odd assortment of heirs, household workers, all, or former employees, she decided. The rich always reward servants in their wills, and her Uncle Sam was a generous man. Again, Grace does not know this guy. Aren't your parents coming? She asked the older Theodorcus boy as he wheeled his brother into the library.
They weren't invited, Theo replied. It's soon, Chris announced. What did he say? He said it's snowing, Theo and Thora Bombatch explained at the same time. The heirs watched helplessly as the invalid's thin frame was suddenly torn and twisted by convulsions. Only the dressmaker rushed to his side. I know, she simpered. You were trying to tell us about the itsy-bitsy snowflakes. Theo moved her way. My brother is not an infant, and he's not retarded, so please, no more baby talk. Blinking away tears, Thora Bombatch returned to her seat. The elfin smile still painted on her pained face. Some stared at the afflicted child with morbid fascination, but most turned away. They didn't want to see. Pyramidal tract involvement, Denton Deer whispered, trying to impress Angela with his diagnosis. Angela, her face a mirror to the boy's suffering, grabbed her tapestry bag and hurried out of the room. Bear Cub, what are you barking at? And do not get Josie involved. Yeah, Grace is living in a fantasy land of her own creation, right? Also, I have to be mindful because, like, I have the door closed, so I don't know how loud it is, but, like, Josie, my grandparents' dog, and Bear like to bark together at things because Luna won't bark. Also, if Luna and Josie are playing and Bear doesn't get to the invite, he will stand next to them and whine and cry until they acknowledge his existence. So I may need to go, like, break it up and at least bring Josie in here, because he might be complaining that the girls are ignoring him. So while this ad break happens, I think I'm gonna go bring Josie in here, because I think that Bear is complaining right now that the girls are ignoring him. That happens. He is a teenage boy dog. Are the girls ignoring you? I'm gonna go get Josie. Josie, come here. Josie, go. Not you. Alright, you all can come in. I kind of just want Josie. Here, but I think Luna might also throw a conniption fit. At least if you're down here, I can monitor you. Okay? We are not having whatever, like. Hi, little ones. Yeah, he does have a habit of throwing a hissy fit if the ladies ignore him. Alright, I'm actually just gonna... Okay. Don't see what he's barking at. Not you. You're gonna stay here. You're staying in here. Yes, little one, you're staying here. Oh, hello. Hi, little potato girl. Hi, my little sweet potato. Hello, little sweet potato. How are you? Oh, now Luna wants to come in. Come in here. You're gonna have to stay here. Oh, if you guys want to play in here, that's fine. Bear can go sleep out there. He might throw a hissy fit, though. I might need to put one of you out there. Luna, you might have to go out there and be with him. I know you two... You can't see it right now, but they're playing on the bed. Okay. Where were we? Alright. Why, hello, Judge Ford. Proud of her liberalism, Grace Windsor Wexler stood and leaned over the table to shake the black woman's hand. She must be here in some legal capacity, or maybe her mother was a household maid. But one thing Grace was certain, J.J. Ford could be no more related to Samuel W. Westing than Mr. Who. Can we get started? Mr. Who asked, hoping to get back in time to watch the football game on television. I must return to my restaurant, he announced loudly. Sunday is our busy day, but we are still accepting reservations. Shinhu's restaurant on the 5th floor of Sunset Towers, specializing in... Doug tugged at his father's sleeve. Not here, Dad. Not in front of the dead. What dead? Mr. Who had not noticed the open coffin. Now he did. Oh! The lawyer explained that several heirs had not yet arrived. My wife is not coming, said Mr. Who. Grace said, Dr. Wexler was called away on an emergency operation. An emergency Packers game in Greenbrae, Turtle confided to Flora Bombach, who scrunched up her shoulders and tittered behind the plump hand. Then we are still waiting for one, no, two more, the lawyer said, fumbling with his papers, his hands shaking under the strict scrutiny of the judge. Judge Ford had recognized E.J. Plum. Several months ago, he had argued before her court, bumbling to the point of incompetence. Why, she wondered, was a young, inexperienced attorney chosen to handle an estate of such importance? Come to think of it, what was she doing here? Curiosity, perhaps? But what about the rest of them? The other tenants of Sunset Towers. Don't anticipate, Josie Joe. Wait for Sam Westing to make the first move. This is why I call Josie, this dog over here, Josie Joe. Because I grew up reading this book, and now Josie Joe is ingrained in my brain, because that's what Judge Ford calls herself in her internal monologues, and she's one of my favorite characters. Light footsteps were heard in the hall. It was only Angela, who, blushed, hugging her tapestry bag close to her body, returned to her seat. The heirs waited. Some chatted with neighbors, some looked up at the gilt ceiling, some studied the pattern of the oriental rug. Judge Ford stared at the table, at Theo Theodorcus's hand, a calloused hand, a healed cut, the shiny slash of a burn on his deep bronze skin. She lowered her hands to her lap. His Greek skin was darker than her black skin. Thump, thump, thump. Someone was coming, or were there two of them? In came Crow, eyes lowered without a word. She sat down next to Otis Amber. A dark cloud passed from her face as she eased off a tight shoe under the table. Thump, thump, thump. The last expectant heir arrived. Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I haven't quite adjusted to this. Siddle Pulaski waved a gaily painted crutch in the air, tottered and set it down quickly with another clump. This crutch, what a horrible word, but I guess I have to get used to it. She pursed her bright red mouth, painted to fullness beyond the narrow line of her lips, trying to suppress the smile of triumph. Everyone was staring. She knew they would notice. What happened, Pulaski? Otis Amber asked. Did you pull Turtle's braid again? You call yourself Super Dave in your internal monologues? I don't know, I don't really have something I call myself in my internal monologues. Maybe they're not that internal. I tend to talk to myself a lot. More likely she visited Dr. Wexler the Foot Butcher, Sandy suggested. Siddle was pleased to hear someone come to her defense. With a loud click of the tongue, she had not even blinked a false eyelash at those offensive remarks. Poise, they called it. It's really nothing, she reported bravely. Just some sort of wasting disease, but pity me not. I shall live out my remaining time enjoying each precious day to full. Thump, thump, thump. The secretary kept to the side of the room, avoiding the oriental rug that might cushion the thump of her purple-striped crutch, as she made her way to the end of the table. Her exaggerated hips were even more exaggerated by the wavy stripes of white on her purple dress. Purple waves, Turtle thought. Denton Deer almost fell off his chair, leaning back to follow this most unusual case. First she favored her left leg, then her right leg. What is it? Whispered Mrs. Wexler. The intern did not have the least notion, but he had to say something. Traveling sporadic mitosis, he pronounced quickly and glanced at Angela. Her eyes remained on her embroidery. I hate doctors that always have to have a diagnosis for something and can't stand the fact that they're wrong about things. Fuck those guys. As somebody with chronic issues, fuck those guys. And it's usually men. That reminds me of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Great movie, by the way. Based off of a true story. I would recommend looking up Matt Baum's Culture Cruise series. He covers, like, history about, like, LGBTQ plus issues. And the making of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is a very fascinating endeavor. The lawyer stood, documents in hand, and cleared his throat several times. Grace Windsor Wexler, Her chin tilted in the regal poise of an heiress, gave him her full attention. 1 minute, please. Siddle Pulaski propped her purple and white striped crutch against the table, then removed a shorthand pad and pencil from her handbag. Thank you for waiting. You may begin.
All right, ready? Time for the reading of the will, Chapter 6. Let's see what Westing left them.
Chapter 6, The Westing Will. My name, the young lawyer began, is Edgar Jennings Plum. Although I never had the honor of meeting Samuel W. Westing, for some reason yet unexplained, I was appointed the executor of his will, found adjacent to the body of the deceased. Let me assure you, I have examined the documents at hand as thoroughly as possible in the short time available. I have verified the signatures to be those of Samuel W. Westing and his 2 witnesses, Julian R. Eastman, President and Chief Executive Officer of Westing Paper Products Corporation, and Sidney Sykes, M.D., Coroner of Western County. Although the will you are about to hear may seem eccentric, I pledge my good name and reputation on its legality. Breathless with suspense, the heirs stared pop-eyed at Edgar Jennings Plum, who now coughed into his fist, now cleared his throat, now rustled papers, and now, at last, began to read aloud from the Westing will.
Sure, why not?
I, Samuel W. Westing, resident of Westing County, in the fair state of Wisconsin, in the great and glorious United States of America, being of sound mind and memory, do hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. First, I returned to live among my friends and my enemies. I came home to seek my heir, aware that in doing so, I faced death. And so I did. Today, I have gathered together my nearest and dearest, my 16 nieces and nephews. What? Sit down, Grace Windsor Wexler. The lawyer stammered an apology to the still standing woman. I was only reading. I mean, those are Mr. Westing's words. If it's any comfort to you, Miss Wexler, Judge Ford remarked with biting dignity, I am just as appalled by our purported relationship. I like that Judge Ford is making fun of Grace Wexler. There's a reason she's one of my favorite characters, and her levels of passive aggressiveness are just astounding. Oh, I didn't mean... Hey, Angela, Turtle called from the length of the table. It's against the law to marry that doctor-to-be. He's your cousin! D. Denton Deer, patting Angela's hand in his best bedside manner, pricked his finger on her embroidery needle. I can't tell who said what with this chatter, Siddle Pulaski complained. Would you read that again, Mr. Lawyer? Today I have gathered together my nearest and dearest 16 nieces and nephews. Sit down, Grace Windsor Wexler, to view the body of your Uncle Sam for the last time. Tomorrow's ashes will be scattered to the 4 winds. Second, I, Samuel W. Westing, hereby swear that I did not die of natural causes. My life was taken from me by one of you. Ooh, Chris's arms flailed in the air, his accusing finger pointing here, no there, it pointed everywhere. His exaggerated motions acted out the confusion shared by all of the heirs as they looked around at the stunned faces of their neighbors to confirm what they heard. Rereading her notes, Siddle Pulaski now uttered a small shriek. Murder? Does that mean Westing was murdered? Oh, wait, no, that was Sandy, not Siddle, sorry. Murder? Does that mean Sam Westing was murdered? Sandy asked one of the heirs on his left. Crow turned away in silence. Does that mean murder? He asked the heir on his right. Murder? Of course it means murder. Sam Westing was murdered, Mr. Who replied. Either that or he ate once too often at that Greasy Spoon coffee shop. Theo resented Who's slur of the family business. It was murder, all right, and the will says the murderer is one of us. He glared at the restaurant owner. Had the police been notified of the charge? Judge Ford asked the lawyer. Plum shrugged. I presume they will perform an autopsy. The judge shook her head in dismay. Autopsy? Westing was already embalmed. Tomorrow he would be cremated. Yeah, this is a murder mystery, guys. I told you it was a mystery. It's a good book. The police are helpless. The culprit is far too cunning to be apprehended for his dastardly deed. Oh my! Flora Bombach clapped a hand to her mouth on hearing dastardly. First murder, now a swear word. I alone know the name. Now it is up to you. Cast out the sinner. Let the guilty rise and confess. Amen, said Crow. Third, who among you is worthy to be the Westing heir? Help me. My soul shall roam relentlessly until that one is found. The estate is at a crossroads. The heir who wins the windfall will be the one who finds the ashes, the doorman shouted. Some tittered to relieve the unbearable tension. Some cast him a reproachful glance. Grace Wexler clicked her tongue, and Siddle Pulaski shushed him. It was a joke. It was a joke, Sandy tried to explain. You know, ashes scattered in the wind, so the ones who wins the windfall gets the... Oh, never mind. Fourth, hail to thee, O land of opportunity. You have made me the son of poor immigrants, rich and powerful and respected. So take stock in America, my heirs, and sing in praise of this generous land. You, too, may strike it rich, who dares to play the Westing game. Game? What game? Turtle wanted to know. No matter, Judge Ford said, rising to leave. This is either a cruel trick, or the man was insane. Fifth, sit down, Your Honor, and read the letter this brilliant young attorney will now hand over to you. It was uncanny. Several heads turned towards the coffin, but Westing's eyes were shut forever. The brilliant young attorney fumbled through a stack of papers, felt his pockets, and finally found a letter in his briefcase. Aren't you going to open it? Theo asked as the judge resumed her seat and put the sealed envelope in her purse. No need. Sam Westing could afford to buy a dozen certificates of sanity. The poor are crazy, the rich are just eccentric, Mr. Who said bitterly. Are you implying, sir, that the medical profession is corrupt? Denton Deer challenged. Shush! Yeah, Denton Deer, we are implying the medical profession is corrupt. It is corrupt. The judge is correct. It is very corrupt. She probably deals with multiple cases like this. Shut your ass up. Sorry, I don't like this character. I mean, I don't like Dr. Deer. I love Judge Ford. Don't like Dr. Deer. Sixth, before you proceed to the game room, there will be 1 minute of silent prayer for your good old Uncle Sam. Flora Bombach was the only heir to cry. Crow was the only one to pray. By the time Siddle Pulaski could assume a pose of reverence, the minute was up. So now we know that there's a game and a murder. Let us continue. 7. The Westing game. 8 card tables, each with 2 chairs, were arranged in the center of the game room. Sports equipment lined the walls. Hunting rifles, ping-pong paddles, billiards cues, a full rack, Turtle noticed. Bows and arrows, darts, bats, raquettes, all looked like possible murder weapons to the jittery heirs, who were waiting to be told where to sit. Theo wandered over to the chess table to admire the finely carved pieces. Someone had moved a white pawn. Okay, he'll play along. Theo defended the opening with a black knight. On hearing Plum's throat-clearing signal, Siddle Pulaski switched the painted crutch to her left armpit and flipped to a fresh page in her notebook. Shush! 7th, and now, dear friends, relatives, and enemies, the Westing game begins. The rules are simple. Number of players, 16, divided into 8 pairs. Each will receive $10,000. Each pair will receive 1 set of clues. Forfeits. If any player drops out, the partner must leave the game. The pair must return the money. Absent pairs forfeit the $10,000. Their clues will be held until the next session. Players will be given 2 days' notice of the next session. Each pair may then give 1 answer. Object of the game: to win. Did you hear that, Crow? Otis Amber said excitedly. $10,000. Now aren't you glad I made you come, huh? Shush! That was Turtle. The object of the game was to win, and she wanted to win. 8th, the heirs will now be paired. When called, go to the assigned table. Your name and position will be read as signed on the receipt. It will be up to the other players to discover who you really are. 1. Madam Sun Lin Hu, cook. Jake Wexler, standing or sitting when not lying down. Grace Wexler did not understand her husband's joke about position. Mr. Hu did, but he was in no mood for humor. $10,000 at stake. Both pleaded for their absent spouses. Emergency operation. My wife doesn't even speak English. To no avail. Table 1 remained empty and moneyless. 2. Turtle Wexler, witch. Flora Bombach, dressmaker. Sighs of relief greeted the naming of Turtle's partner, but Flora Bombach seemed pleased to be paired with the kicking witch. At least, her face was still puckered in that elfin grin. Turtle had hoped for one of the high school seniors, especially Doug Hu. 3. Christos Theodorkus, birdwatcher. Denton Deere, intern, St. Joseph's Hospital, Department of Plastic Surgery. Of course, he's a fucking plastic surgeon. God damn it. I forgot he was a fucking plastic surgeon. Theo protested. He and his brother should be paired together. Chris was his responsibility. Mrs. Wexler protested. Dr. D should be paired with his bride-to-be. D. Denton Deere protested, but silently. If this had been arranged for free medical advice, they, whoever they are, were mistaken. He was a busy man. He was a doctor, not a nursemaid. Of course he thinks that way. He should work at an ER sometime. Those nurses would whip him to bits. But Chris was delighted to be part of the outside world. He would tell the intern about the person who limped into the Westinghouse. Maybe that was the murderer. Unless his partner was the murderer. This was really exciting, even better than television. Alexander McSoutherners, doorman. J.J. Ford, Judge, Appellate Division of the State of the Supreme Court. The heirs watched the jaunty doorman pull out a chair for the judge. It had never occurred to them that Sandy was a nickname for Alexander. But that couldn't be what Sam Westing meant. It will be up to the other players to discover who you really are. Or could it? The judge did not return the chip-tooth smile. Doorman, he calls himself. The others had signed simple things too. Cook, dressmaker. The podiatrist had even made fun of his position. She must seem as pompous as that intern, putting on airs with that title. Well, she had worked hard to get where she was. Why shouldn't she be proud of it? She was no token. Her record was faultless. Watch it, Josie Joe. Westing's getting to you already, and the game has barely begun. Grace Windsor Wexler, heiress. James Shin Hu, restaurateur. Grace Windsor Wexler ignored the stickers. If she was not the heiress now, she would be soon. What with her clues, Angela's clues, Turtle's clues, Denton's clues, and the clues of Mr. Who's obedient son, $5,000 lost. Oh, who needs Jake anyway? She'd win on her own. You'll be happy to know that Mr. Westing really was my Uncle Sam, she whispered to her partner. So what, thought Mr. Who. $5,000 lost. He should have told his wife about this meeting. Dragged her along. Sam Westing in the house has cheated him again. Whoever killed him deserves a medal. Bertha Erica Crow, Good Salvation Soup Kitchen. Otis Amber, deliverer. The delivery boy danced a merry jig, but Crow, her sore foot squeezed back into her tight shoe, headed for table 6 with a grim face. Why were they watching her? Did they think that she killed Windy? Could the guilty know her guilt? Repent. Crow limps, Chris Theodorkus noted. Theo Theodorkus, brother. Doug Who, first in All-State High School mile run. They slapped hands, and Doug jogged to table 7. Theo moved more slowly. Passing the chessboard, he saw that the white had made a second move. He countered with a black pawn. Maybe he should not have written brother. But like it or not, that was his position in life. Chris was smiling at him in pure sweetness, which made Theo feel even guiltier about his resentment. I guess that makes us partners, Mrs. Pulaski, Angela said. Pardon me, did you say something? Siddle Pulaski, Secretary to the President. Angela Wexler, none. Angela stepped tentatively behind the secretary, not knowing whether to ignore her disability or take her arm. At least her crippled partner could not be the murderer. But it was embarrassing being paired with such a... No, she shouldn't feel that way. It was her mother who was upset. She could feel the indignant anger without having to look at Grace. Her perfect daughter was paired with a freak. What good luck, the hobbling Siddle Pulaski thought. Now she really could be noticed with such a pretty young thing for a partner. They might even invite her to the wedding. She painted Crutch white with little pink nosegays. Denton Deer was troubled. What in the world did Angela mean by none? So Angela wrote, to clarify this, Angela wrote N-O-N-E. And then Denton thinks she wrote N-U-N. just to clarify. Once again, Edgar J. Jennings Plum cleared his throat. Nasal drip, Denton Deer whispered, confiding the latest diagnosis to his partner. Chris giggled. What's the crippled kid so happy about? The intern wondered. Ninth, money. Each parent attendants will now receive a check for the sum of $10,000. The check cannot be cashed without the signatures of both partners. Spend it wisely or go for broke. May God thy gold refine. A piercing shriek suddenly reminded the Westing heirs of the murder. While passing out checks, the lawyer had stepped on Crow's sword foot. Is this legal, Judge? Sandy asked. It's not only legal, Mr. McSoutherners, Judge Ford replied, signing her name to the check and handing it to the doorman. It's a shrewd way of keeping everyone playing the game. 10th, each pair of attendants will now receive an envelope containing a set of clues. No two sets of clues are alike. It's not what you have, it's what you don't have that counts. Placing the last of the envelopes on the table, the young lawyer smiled at Angela. Siddle Pulaski smiled back. I like that, like, he's smiling at one person and Siddle just... that's so me, misreading the social cue entirely. This makes no sense, Denton Deer complained. 4 clues typed on cut squares of the Westing super strength paper towels lay on the table before him. Arms and elbows at odds with fingers fanned, Chris tried to rearrange the words in some grammatical, if not logical order. Hey, watch it, the intern shouted as one clue wafted to the floor. Flora Baumbach leaped from her chair at the next table, picked up the square of paper, and set it down before the trembling youngster. I didn't see it, she announced loudly. I really didn't see it, she repeated under the questioning gaze of her partner, Turtle Wexler, which the word she had seen was plain. The players protected their clues more carefully now. Hunched over tables, they moved the paper squares this way and that way, mumbling and grumbling. The murderer's name must be there somewhere. Only one pair had not yet seen their clues. At table 8, Siddle Pulaski placed one hand on the envelope, raised a finger to her lips, and tilted her head towards the other heirs. Just watch and listen, she meant. She may be odd, but she's smart, Angela thought. Since each pair had different clues, they would watch and listen for clues to their clues. Hee, the delivery boy slapped his partner on the back. That's us, old pal, Queen Crow and King Amber. What's this on or no? Doug, who turned the clue upside down, then right side up again. Theo jabbed an elbow in his ribs and turned to see if anyone had heard. Angela lowered her eyes in time. J.J. Ford crumpled the clues in her fist and rose in anger. I am sorry, Mr. McSoutherners. Playing a pawn in this foolish game is one thing, but to be insulted with minstrel show dialect. Please, Judge, don't quit on me, Sandy pleaded. I'd have to give back all that money. It would break my wife's heart and my poor kids. Judge Ford regarded the desperate doorman without pity. So many had begged before her bench. Please, Judge, I lost my job, my pension. I can't fight no more. Don't quit just because of some nonsensical words. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me, she had chanted at as a child. Words did hurt, but she was no longer a child, nor a hanging judge, and there was always a chance. All right, Mr. McSoutherners, I'll stay. J.J. Ford sat down, her eyes sparking with wickedness, and we'll play the game just as Sam Westing would have played it. Mean. Flora Bombach squeezed her eyes together and screwed up her face. She was concentrating. Haven't you memorized them yet? Turtle didn't like the way Otis Amber's scrawny neck was swiveling high out of his collar. And what was Angela staring at? Yes, I think so, the dressmaker replied. But I can't make heads or tails of them. They make perfect sense to me, Turtle said. One by one, she put the clues in her mouth, chewed, and swallowed them. Gibberish, Mr. Who muttered. Grace Windsor Wexler agreed. Excuse me, Mr. Plum, but what are these clues to? I mean, exactly what are we supposed to find? Purple waves, Sandy joked with a wink at Turtle. Mrs. Wexler uttered a cry of recognition and changed the order of two of her clues. It's still gibberish, Mr. Who complained. Other players pressed the lawyer for more information. Ed Plum only shrugged. Then, could you please give us copies of the will? A copy will be on file, Judge Ford began. I'm afraid not, Your Honor, the lawyer said. The will, he paused and tried again. The will not be filed until the first of the year. My instructions specifically state that no heir is allowed to see any of the documents until the game is over. A copy? That's not fair, but wait, they did have a copy, a shorthand copy. Sybil Pulaski had plenty of attention now. She smiled back at the friendly faces, revealing a lipstick stain on her front teeth. Isn't there some sort of last statement? Sandy asked Plum. I mean, like the intern says, nothing makes any sense. 11th, senseless, you say. Death is senseless, yet it makes way for the living. Life, too, is senseless, unless you know who you are, what you want, and which way the wind blows. So on with the game, the solution is simple, if you know who you are looking for. But heirs beware, be aware. Some are not who they say they are, and some are not who they seem to be. Whoever you are, it's time to go home. God bless you, and remember this, buy Westing Paper Products. I love just using your will to, promote your business. It's, really, really tacky, but, Alright, we're gonna let this ad break go by. It's almost 2 hours. I'm kind of debating because, part of me wants to go to, the end of chapter 10, but I do think we've kind of reached a good spot, and I'm trying not to make the reading streams too long. Maybe we'll go sooner. I'm gonna let, actually, do y'all want to see Josie? I'm gonna grab Josie. Hi, Josie. You want to say hi? You want to say hi to people? No, little potato, come here. It's okay. Come here, my little potato. My little potato girl. It's okay. Are you worried I'm going to do the eye drops right now? You're good. Hi, Luna. I see you too. I can't pay attention to one without needing to pay attention to the other. Oh. Hi, Sorrow Tears. How are you doing today? Little potato dog. Hi, Josie. Are you the little potato? My little potato. You're so round and shaped like a potato. You're so round like a little potato. How are you, Sorrow Tears? I don't know if you came in during the ad break or not, so you kind of came at the end of the stream. I'm good. I had a crazy couple of months, but I'm getting back into it. Yeah, you unfortunately came at the end of the stream, but I'll be posting, it'll be up on my Twitch page for a while, and I'll also be posting it on YouTube. Going back into the reading streams, we're reading the Westing game. My book's a little broken, but, good books are like good friends. Just because they break apart doesn't mean that you get rid of them, But we will be resuming the Westing game next week. I'm just gonna, once a week, we're gonna read a couple chapters of the Westing game, kind of go from there. It's really good to see you again. I missed you. Hi, little one. Hello. Alright, everyone. Well, goodbye. Hopefully your day is mentally restful, and you are all valid, even on days when you don't feel like it. I hope you all have a very content week. If you want more of me, I have a Discord page, a YouTube page. I'm on Twitch. Most people are watching on Twitch. And yeah, I'll be streaming every now and again, so feel free to drop by and say hi. I'm on Instagram as well. And I have an OnlyFans if you want sexy fantasy-esque content. Yeah. Stay safe, y'all. Bye.